Hi, everybody. This is Connie Pascal at the School of Communication and Information here in beautiful downtown New Brunswick. It is our pleasure to welcome you to the first ever MI Colloquium as webinar. So as participants are coming on board, we're going to have a few moments of a little bit of silence here, and in just about 30 seconds or so, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pawlowski. Dr. Pawlowski, are you there?
I am. I just unmuted myself.
Okay, well, everybody, it's a real treat for me to introduce Dr. Lilia Pawlowski. She is an associate teaching professor and the director of the MI program here at Sky. And again, this is kind of her baby. So, Dr. Pawlowski,
we've been hoping to do this for about 2 years. And I'm really glad that we're doing this now because it is exactly the right time to be doing this colloquium, considering the work that we are putting into a project that I'll be telling you about later. At the moment, I just would like to say welcome to all of our participants, and that in this short hour, we hope to present a glimpse of what the world of digital asset management is all about, or rather what the DAM world is all about. Next slide, please. And the cast of characters in order of appearance, and they will talk about their backgrounds as we move forward in this presentation. We have David Lipsy in the room, and Jana Levinson and Deb Smith. And introducing the crew, which is me, Lilia Pawlowski, and there's Connie Pascal, colloquium extraordinaire, arranger of all things, and curator of the past and the present in our colloquium world, and Sharon Storger, who is here to help us with Q&A. So before we start, I just want to lay down what's going to happen. We have approximately 10 to 15 minutes allocated per speaker. We also have a Q&A box. It probably is at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions as the presentations are moving forward, enter them into the Q&A box. There will be no, both hand raising and audio questions are muted. Sharon Storger will be monitoring the questions and presenting them to the speakers as we move on. And Q&A will happen at the end of all the talks or all the presentations. And we'll get to as many questions as time permits. And if there is a specific question for a specific speaker, please make sure you note that in your query. This presentation will also be posted to the MI playlist on the Sky YouTube channel. So moving to our first speaker, I am very excited to present David Lipsy. He is a thought leader in the DAM community with many years of experience in the diversified media and entertainment sectors. We are really happy to welcome David to our community, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say about DAM today.
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here around this as we convene around a digital table. It'd be so much more nice if we could kind of say hello in person, but we'll suffice with what technology affords us today. I'm one of the founders of the field of digital asset management about 20 years ago, and was involved, and mea culpa for this, in the small group of people who were trying to figure out what in the world to call this thing. We tried for content management. I want everyone to know that, but think of all the corny jokes you would not be able to make if we hadn't come up with this. But we lost that particular battle along the way and did come up with our phrase of digital asset management. The term of art has come to mean many things, and through each of your careers, which I hope we will reinforce and ignite some interest in today. The meanings and grasp of this term will continue to change. I'm going to set the stage in that context, and very intentionally with the title that I chose for this presentation of Creating Everyday Success and Innovations Always Ahead. This is a field ripe with opportunity for not only doing, but thinking about doing differently in ways that make contributions to all of our organizations, corporations, and institutions, and filled with promise of the different meanings that it will have. But let's start by looking at where it came from. At first, we got started because the digital era was dawning, and we had all these silos of information. We had text and photos and data, we had graphics and video, and we needed a place where we could go get that information. Largely, this started from the publishing world in New York City, both those publishers that make trade books and nonfiction, as well as the scientific. Someone's rustling some paper. I'm sorry, could you please mute yourself? As well as the scientific, technical, medical, and mathematical publishing world. That was largely the impetus for digital asset management and for bringing structured content to an opportunity to be repurposed. So we invented the first software to manage this and got it patented, and we were so happy because look at what we had done. We collapsed all the silos. Of course, time has gone on. The digital world has grown considerably, and then something else came along. After we achieved these initial goals of retrieving rich media, photos, videos, animations, and so on. But I think as we all know, and if not, here's this very simple way that we understood DAM at the beginning, and it's kind of true, it is still true in a root sense today, a set of database records partnered with the infrastructure to preserve and manage digital assets. Things have evolved considerably. So today, while we're all really happy, we got a place to put the video and graphics, etc. Take a look at this slide here. We've got the basic digital asset. Notice the General Mills brand in the upper left corner of the box. We've got the Honey Nut and Cheerios design for the cereal box. But DAM then had to play very nice, and this was not true at the beginning, with many other forms of data. If we look on the lower left, we see the UPC code. UPC codes come from a kind of software called Product Information Management. In the museum world, that's called TMS, or Collections Management. Then if we look at the right, we see another asset, and that is the CAD drawing. It's a PDF of the CAD drawing representing the cereal box. And you can see down the middle there, it's got all the label information. And additionally, if you could go back one slide, please. In addition, on our Cheerios box, oh, that was 2 slides. Let's go backwards, please. You're going the wrong direction. That's still the wrong direction. Try the up arrow. There we go. Let's finish up with our Cheerios box. So by way of what digital asset is evolving towards, and while we were so happy we got all the basics done, there are many other assets that we're seeing on here. On the label information there is a tremendous amount of effort being devoted right now to something called smart labels, which will be either UPC, QR, or web accessed, that contain all the detailed information about all the little itty bitty data that's on that label right there. For example, if that label says 500% of the RDA for vitamin C, consumers are calling food companies today and saying, where did that vitamin C come from? And the answer is in something called Smart Label, because consumers today in a digital world expect to know, is it vegan-based? Did it come from animal product? Is it made out of shrimp bodies? And each of those calls are quite expensive for a corporation to answer. So Smart Labels for the food business, for the clothing business in use and care materials, as well as much more interesting hyperlinks to recipes in the case of food, or to color swatches in the case of clothing, offer a much richer experience from the 2D flat label that we're typically used to, then I also do like to point out that the secret asset that we're looking at right here about what's different in DAM today is that whited out area on the Cheerios box. And while I'd love to ask you all in person, but I can't on the digital table, that is a virtual reality bumblebee. And through the correct lens, that bee starts to fly around the Cheerios box. DAM today, DAM in the future, has to be ready to embrace these unknown types of assets. Now we're ready to go forward. DAM is part of a much larger ecosystem today. I made it the big sun because I really like digital asset management. But look at all the things that DAM has to have in its orbit. Product information management, master data management, critical articulation of MLIS values, creative operations, marketing resource management, meaning email campaigns and things like that, social media, SAP and accounting software, packaging software. And then I left 2 planets, including poor little Pluto out there, undefined, because as with the example of the virtual reality of the bee, we don't know what's coming, but we absolutely can guarantee that there is a new digital asset coming. And that's part of the enthusiasm we have for providing advanced education on digital asset management to not only master what is today, but to be ready for what is coming in DAM. And what is coming in DAM, as we see in the next couple of slides, is a much wider understanding of the meaning of DAM. DAM today consists of the binary, the proverbial ones and the zeros, the metadata that comes with an asset. I call that dark metadata, and it just means, like, for example, how everybody looks at their phone and they know exactly where a picture was taken. And that's metadata that travels with an asset that you don't have to type in. Lights on metadata. Let's say we had 20 pictures of dogs and we needed to annotate, were they happy dogs, mean dogs, bad dogs, family dogs. Metadata that's inferential or associated or machine generated through artificial intelligence or trained machines, or linked metadata from open data sources. Embedded rights. Can I use this picture? And we expect a mature asset management system today to have usage frames, in other words, red, yellow, green, that actually travel with the asset and tell someone, hey, you can use this picture that you just took from, you just licensed from Getty or Shutterstock or for your local photographer, and the system has state awareness where it knows it can be used. So as you can see, the definition of an asset from this slide and what we're going to see next has grown increasingly complicated. An asset must in a mature system tie into accounting. An asset should show us where did the asset go on its journey? Did it go to Facebook? Did it go out through a Salesforce system to some kind of marketing campaign? Where was it used? And in all those nice, great big words at the end there, the automated ability to decode on-demand binary transformation requirements. Here's the plain English of what that means. I live in McLean, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. I can watch the local baseball team, the Washington Nationals, on 455 separate devices. And that means when an asset goes from the broadcast facility out, that it can be transformed just under 500 separate ways. And think about just the electronic consumption devices in your own lives. And you start to see how important transformation is in embracing the use of digital assets. And so these things taken together as we look next are what we would call an asset, at least for a little while. And that's part of the reason why programs like this are so valuable, because this is just for a little while. Asset management has some pretty excited uses today, and I thought I'd share a couple of those. One of them is what we call in the field, rich media customer service. And if anyone has had the experience of trying to send a picture of a defective product to a manufacturer, you are you are using digital assets for customer service. Here are two from my house. You can see I managed through some level of incompetence. I still don't know how to burn the devil out of one of my best Le Creuset pieces on the left. And I broke 2 pieces of OXO on the right. And I'll never forget calling OXO customer service on the right and saying, I've got a couple of broken things. I'm going to the post office. May I mail them to you? And this very nice woman on the phone said, honey, do you have one of those devices that takes pictures? And it was a great moment in my storytelling about DAM, because she let me just email her a picture, called me back, and said they knew about the metallurgic flaws in both of these products, and they sent me replacement copies without me having to do anything else. And they got fantastic data about a problem. So rich media customer service driven by DAM. Other innovations for DAM include the opportunity to express very new roles for today's archivists. And here are 3 examples. In the middle, in the black and white photo, is the original Chick-fil-A. In the middle to the, I'm sorry, that was on the left, black and white. In the middle on the right is the original pink Cadillac from Mary Kay Cosmetics. Both of those companies use archival assets in their modern branding. And we have surround sound from the woman who is the archivist for IBM Worldwide. And when asked in a panel I was moderating, what were the most frequently downloaded assets from IBM, the answer was the IBM Selectric Typewriter Repair Manual, and where can I buy IBM Selectric Typewriter balls? She's able to put her fingertips, as are these other archivists, on these rich media assets immediately and use them for branding campaigns, in-store promotions, and so on and so forth. DAM has enabled a very different life for today's archivists than traditional box and shelf information. What we do in DAM, what I hope each of you will have the chance to explore as a career, really matters. Here's this picture from a display case at the wonderful Flight Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, which I encourage you to actually extend a layover to the next connecting flight and pay a visit. It's on the grounds of the airport, just a few minutes from the main terminal. And we see here a dramatic impact from DAM. In the 1980s, in fact, until fairly recently, pilots carried manuals that weighed as much as 30 pounds. And when they were starting to be deprecated just 6 years ago, they weighed 38 pounds. Today, flight manuals are all on tablets for Delta. Delta 700, I'll read the slide. Delta 700 aircraft fly greener and more environmentally friendly with paperless cockpits. The absence of heavy paper manuals in charge saves 1.2 million gallons of fuel and 900 trees annually. And whether you're joining us because you want to work in a corporation and help with maturing the digital environment and digital engagement, or where mission and mandate are the goals and we work in service and not in terms of a P&L, what we do really makes a difference. And everyone who works in this field potentially has the opportunity to embrace changes that really do make a difference. And one of the fun things as I conclude my section about DAM is that it is a career and it is a technology that gives us a clear focus on the past, a bright future ahead. And this is a photo of the very famous study of Dr. Freud. And I just love the idea of lie on my couch and tell me what you see. Because DAM is a career, a technology, an opportunity to envision a different way, to embrace what we do daily, to enable our organization's missions or our company's business operations differently. And I hope you'll enjoy this chance to consider DAM and get a little more exposure to it. Lilia and Connie, thank you for the chance to share this today.
Thank you, David, for being with us, and thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. I never tire of hearing these talks. I would like to interject a note to the participants. Some of you may have joined since we started. There is a little Q&A box. If you are having any kind of question that you want to share with us, please type them into the box and we will manage them here, and we will discuss them once the presentations are over. So the next section will explore metadata and information management. We welcome Jana Levinson, an alum of our program. She is basically my personal DAM guru. She has taught me a lot about her role within this environment, as well as the importance of the idea of managing these information resources. And her talk will focus on metadata, which is a critical component of a DAM system.
Thank you for that introduction, Lilia. And thanks. And it's always great to hear David do a presentation. So I'm Jana Levinson. I'm the manager of metadata management and taxonomy at HBO. We're now part of Warner Media and have been purchased by AT&T. And I will just say that there are many metadata conversations going on. And when you think about David's presentation, you know, when he talks about the information, whether it's on the Cheerios box or whatever, those are all pieces of metadata. And that's what the aboutness of the content is really what drives so many things. I will just also add one more comment with regards to the flight manuals. Way back in the day, when I was a young typesetter, one of the, and getting into digital publishing, one of the things that we were told at the company I was working for at the time is that people had wanted to say, well, let's put all the documentation for an airplane on the airplane. And the statistic I was given is that the documentation, the full set of documentation for a 747 weighed more than a 747. So now being able to digitize the information, you know, of the manuals of every part of the airplane, just in case the pilots or other people on the plane had to make repairs, that helped get us into the digital age. So first it was starting, I think, with the publishing, and also now we're doing so much on the, with the aboutness of the content itself. So I've been working with taxonomy development, how to maintain those taxonomies, and governance of the taxonomies and the metadata terminology. I work with a lot of different metadata standards across the various industries. As I mentioned, the markup, and David did mention the DAM, MAM. So DAM, Digital Asset Management, MAM is Media Asset Management, and CMS, Content Management Systems. And so I've worked with all of those. Currently, as I said, I'm with HBO. I'm in the media and entertainment space, but I come from the publishing world, and what I found out was that the problems in all these industries are really the same. It's just sometimes you have a few other things that you need to take into consideration. So what happens during a typical day with my team? I have on my team I have a metadata. I think that's actually my next slide, but no, I want to stay on this one. I'm part of the information technology group and at HBO, and a lot of the people that we work with are project managers, and we work with the data architects to really figure out what needs to happen and why is this important. And the people on my team include an ontologist who I like to think of ontology sometimes as the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, because you have Kevin Bacon as a father and a musician and an actor and a husband and a brother and all these different kinds of things. And it's almost like a little web there where everything's woven to, where a spider web, where all these various touch points, and they all go back to Kevin Bacon. And sometimes the metadata terminology we're working with can tie into these different areas. So I have an ontologist who focuses in that particular area, and a metadata analyst, and I will describe more about what she does as well. So my team and I are the terminology clearinghouse. We figure out what those field or metadata term names are, what they should be in the systems. And if we have pulled down lists of values or control vocabularies, what should those be? So anybody that's ever filled out a form online and you want to put in, are you Mr., Mrs., Ms., you know, Sir, whatever that prefix is in your name, then those are pull downs or control vocabularies. And this way, by having that kind of information available to you, it helps reduce the amount of errors that people key in. How do we do all this work? We do cross-mapping. If you've taken Intro to Metadata at Rutgers, then you will have done some kind of cross-mapping exercise comparing different metadata terminologies, from one standard to another. How do they equate? We do that all the time on the various systems that we have in-house. We also know that we need to provide metadata to other people outside of our world. So if you're the information you see on your television screen, when you're going to the guide, that is metadata, that's information we need to provide. Or if you're going to buy a DVD or something online, at Amazon or Barnes and Noble, whatever, all that's information that the content creator needs to provide to the affiliate or to the reseller. Some examples there. We use industry standards to say what terminology should we be using rather than reinventing the wheel every single time. I have found that people sit down and say, okay, what are we going to call this thing? And the next thing you know, they've come up with this whole other set of terminology. And then you're like, oh no, now I have to take this terminology we've developed in-house. Now I need to translate it into what needs to be sent out to Barnes and Noble and to Amazon or to the TV guides. And I'll also talk a little bit about and some of the tools that we use are spreadsheets. We use taxonomy tools, anything that we can do so it's easy to kind of look at it visually, do sorts and compares, and taxonomy tools are specialized to help us focus in that area and also generate reporting. The important thing is that no matter what you're doing with metadata, make sure that you document where things came from. You want to know the who, what, where, when, why, how of the taxonomy terms and the pull down lists or the list of values that you're working with. So this way, in case anybody has a question and they say, I want to spell gray, G-R-E-Y, and you already spelled it G-R-A-Y, and you're working in the States versus the UK, then you can say, well, this is, this is a United States-based company. This is the spelling that we're going to use. That's just, that's a small example. And then get sign off on the terminology. So this way, again, you can say, so-and-so who is the head of the department approved this list. So even though you're brand new to the company or you come from a different industry and you may want to call it gray, G-R-E-Y, we already have approval for G-R-A-Y, and then you don't have to change it. So you want to capture as much of the information and provenance as you possibly can. So what's the role of an information professional? So one of the things that what I find, and I've been in this business for quite a while, is that people, when you start working in a technology area, it doesn't matter, or creating metadata for a system, it really doesn't matter what system, well, let me take a step back. People start working where they're at. So if I'm in working with a marketing group, they already know that they have a product and they want to describe it and do something with it. Meanwhile, somebody else had to design it. Initially, there's information about this. There's a whole bunch of metadata that is for that widget. So what I mean here when I say it starts at conception and then it ends with preservation, you really have to think about what information can you gather along the journey, and then where does it need to end up? So one of the quizzes that I give to to anybody I'm interviewing, whether it's an intern or somebody on my team, is what are the different kinds of metadata? I should have included this on the slide. I didn't, but make a note. If not, we can I can type those out later. Descriptive metadata, technical metadata, structural. So like if you're working with a book, you need to know what order your chapters are in. Usage, was this image used in this particular location? Administrative, there's details about the administration of when that asset was taken, when it was used, when it was last updated, etc. And also rights and permissions. And when I say it starts with conception, you want to gather as much information up front as possible, and then preservation often is dealing with your archival or, what needs to be retained. The people that we work with, again, information technology, we work on system implementations to make sure that if I'm calling something like identifier, one system may call it an ID and another system may call it an identifier. Somebody then has to maintain a table someplace that says ID equals identifier. And that becomes really important. And we as the terminology police help keep everybody on the straight and narrow. When you have good metadata, you can also help with search and then also retrieve information, because people can fill out forms and then say, this is, here's a pull down list. I want to search for this kind of asset and it has to have the word Flintstones in it or whatever, or Cheerios. We want to make sure the payloads, which is the metadata transfer, is smooth between system A and system B. And often now in this day and age, because digital asset management and other systems have been around for such a long time, you may have started with a small amount of metadata and now you have an opportunity to extend it out. So you need to look at the information you have available and possibly convert it into other metadata standards. Who are the users of the metadata? We have, often it's marketing, sales, manufacturing. Big thing now that I'm sure is in the MI area is analytics and statistics. Really, everybody's using metadata. Even the guy who repairs my car, we have interesting conversations about repeat customers and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you often have your, the archives and preservation folks. So next slide, please. So, whoops. There we go. So one of the things that has been a success for my team and me is that we make sure that we become part of the process. If a system is a brand new system is being created or there's updates going on, we make sure that we're part of the process, as opposed to they do all this work and then they come back and say, oh yeah, can you just check this term for us? Because they think it's a nothing and it's really a something that we have to go back. We check the industry standards. We go and see what is everybody else using so that we don't have to maintain as many metadata terms, or we make sure that everybody is using the same metadata term. So when I said the tools that we use are spreadsheets and taxonomy tools, what we also capture are definitions, and then we can generate a glossary or a data dictionary. I also am a firm believer of one piece of metadata per field. Let others mix and match what they need and make sure that you're looking at the data itself and don't worry about how it's being presented. So make sure what you need is there, and then the people like in analytics have the information they need for the queries. Don't reinvent the wheel. If there's an existing standard, start there. What is everybody else using? There are all different kinds of standards. If you've taken the intro to metadata, then you know about Dublin Core. You probably know about Library of Congress and a bunch of other standards out there. Use workbooks and spreadsheets if you don't have anything else. I always have my team, we always add an additional cover page onto our workbook, and we put a statement of work on there. Why did we create this? When did we create it? When did it last updated? And what do the column headers mean? So this way then we leave a breadcrumb trail, or as our ontologist says, it's a love note to our future selves. Why did we do this? So what's the provenance of the spreadsheet? And what we have found, and what I have made sure that my superiors know about the work that my team and I are doing, is that consistent terminology implementation across an enterprise ends up saving a lot of time and money. Fewer resources because you're not reinventing the wheel. Am I using identifier? Am I using ID? Company's policy, because we have it signed off on, is to use the full term identifier. So then the developers just take it, they implement it. There's less testing that needs to be done. You don't have to maintain what they call a mapping table that says ID equals identifier, and then the savings just keep on going from there. What I have found is, I didn't pick this career. I had no idea when I was younger that this is what I was going to be doing for my life, but this is how it turned out. And my team and I, we have a great time. We love all these different kinds of details, and we really make a difference in the company. And I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Jona. Next slide, please. And finally, last but not least, I knew Deb back in 2009 when she was in our program studying school librarianship. I will let her tell you about that experience, about her experience after that, but what I can say is it is a great example of how one's professional path can lead to unexpected destinations.
Thank you, Lilia, and thanks for having me on this panel. I'm actually really excited to be here with David and everyone else, because one of the things that is, I guess, serendipitous is that while David was founding the DAM field, I was in the creative field working at a book publisher at the dawn of digital asset management, using a tool that David had created. So I did not know David at the time, but we met a few years back, and we always said we should write an article about how our paths have crossed. So this is a great opportunity to kind of put those pieces together and look at both of our journeys of where we've come from and where we're going. I did put a couple of projects on this slide if you want to check those out. I will be talking about one of them, the DAM directory, in future slides. Next slide, please. Okay, so my career path has been circuitous, but I put it up here in all its glory, not because I want to talk about myself, but because I think as students looking at DAM as a career and the larger information management space, it can really help figure out where you come from and how you can leverage that going forward into an information science career. And I will say a little known fact is I'm on career 2.5, maybe 2.5.2, because I almost became a professional musician, and I knew I didn't want to perform for a living. And a lot of information professionals that I meet have no idea what they want to do with their lives because they're interested in everything, like teachers and librarians. They're very curious, intelligent people as a whole, and I had many nights in college where I just stayed up till 3 worrying about what I was going to do. So all I knew was I liked going into bookstores, I liked going into art stores, and I really loved how Staples was organized. So be that what it may, I wound up in art, and I had a fabulous career early on in publishing. I worked in ad promo, then I moved on to book cover design. And one of the things that made me think that perhaps I wasn't in the right place was the fact that I had a very clean desktop. One of my creative directors said to me, I never trust a designer with a clean desk, meaning that when you're in crazy creative flow, you've got files all over the place. Creatives are not known for being organized. So the other thing was I found myself looking at the process, the creative process behind what we did every day. And as David had shown, in order to come up with the design, in my case, it wasn't a cereal box, it was a book cover, which is not just the jacket, but the casing underneath it and how you coordinate with the interior folks. So it's a lot of pieces, the structural metadata that Jona was talking about, et cetera, on and on. But for those pieces to come together, there were fonts, there were images from stock houses. We had to do photo research. There were moments where, last minute, it's like, okay, we have to repurpose or redesign this art, and it's 10 years old, and oh my God, look in the drawer over in the end of the hallway. Do we have the files anymore? Oh my God. So me being me, I said, there's really got to be a better way. I'm kind of always that person annoying the teacher asking why. And so we didn't have a DAM at that point. Shortly thereafter, we did have the DAM that David designed, which was fabulous. But when I was first in this role, I actually said, okay, I'll take a spreadsheet. I will take the time, it was on my lunch or whatever. And I just created a simple spreadsheet of everything that was in our drawer. And the next time somebody came up to me and said, oh my gosh, we have a rush job. It's really hot, et cetera. I said, well, just a moment. And I brought up my Excel spreadsheet and I did a Command F because we were all on Macs. And I said, you know what? We do have that. And it was just such a simple thing. We're like, wow. And for me, that was the connection. It was being an enabler of helping connect people with information and making my life less stressful. There were additional things that, for example, collective intelligence, which actually leads into knowledge management, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Again, I just found myself like looking at so many efficiencies that could be had, which cross over into creative ops, but also in digital asset management production. We're all looking at the same stock houses. We're all looking at the same fonts. Why aren't we sharing this information? Why is it taking 6 months to onboard a new employee? So these were areas that I was interested in. I loved research and organizing. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm a hybrid. I'm not just a creative. So, life being what it was, I decided that New York City commute was not going to mesh with other things I wanted to do in my life. So when I had the opportunity, I decided to go back to school for library and information science. And as Lilia said, I started out taking the MLIS program at Rutgers at the time and focused very much on the program that was geared towards some traditional library science like collection management, et cetera, but also more in the digital realm as well. So I loved education research. I decided I want to be a school librarian. Who doesn't want the summers off, right? So long and short of it, at some point in 2013, I decided I really enjoyed the technical part and actually organizing information, structuring it, connecting people with it. So I went back to school for a postmaster certificate and really dug into the topics that are so critical to DAM, like metadata, taxonomy, workflow, rights management, you name it. It seems like you can never learn enough. As David said, everything is for now. There's always going to be something to learn. So you'll notice that from 2014 on, I've had a lot of different positions in a lot of different industries. Some were volunteer gigs just to get my foot in the door. Others were in different industries like pharma and the CPG companies, the retail industries. And as Jona said too, there's a common thread running through all of them as far as like information management needs, but each industry has their own quirks and concerns that you have to deal with as well. So the whole point of this slide is really that your career can go anywhere, which I'm sure many of you know, as information science is typically not someone's first career, unfortunately. But the key is to think about, and I'll talk about this on a later slide, think about how where you've been can help where you're going. So one of the things, if you look at, where is it? The shock job I had at Campbell's Soup Company in 2015-ish. Thank you. The only reason I got that job is because I had experience with print design and printing. And you really have to play up your background and figure out where you can leverage your experience. So with that, I will go into the next slide. So I wrote a series of ridiculously long articles on who needs a DAM librarian. And the point of those articles was to advocate for information management skills and information scientists in not just the field of DAM, but beyond. Because what happens is there are all these folks with these fabulous skills that the industries need desperately. They may not know they need it. They may not know that someone with this skill set exists, that these career paths exist. Many times I've been in this spot where the person who hired me had no idea that DAM even existed, yet she was doing it every day. She was simply thrown the DAM system at some point in her career and said, here, you manage it. So I was lucky to get in and really provide value in that situation. But as far as my career, I've spent time in digital asset management. And at this point, for various reasons, different opportunities have come in different areas I want to focus in. I'm actually dipping my toe into knowledge management and a tiny bit of web content management. And guess what? It's the same foundational information science skills, your metadata, your taxonomy, your user experience, all of the things I learned being a school librarian about how students were frustrated with user interfaces and why isn't search working? Why can't I just Google it? And everything informs where I am now. So I actually was going to put all these little skills in here, but if you're all, in the programs, what those foundational skills are that we've been mentioning. But look at your flavor of interests and look at where you might combine. Maybe you have, say, an interest in math or statistics. Maybe you want to go the data curator route or records management. There's a lot of opportunities now coming up for records management. And yes, it's the same skill set, but there are regulations and legal things that you might not have to deal with as a data curator. So looking at the next slide, I have the same point driving home what I've just said, but exactly looking at the private sector, the public sector, nonprofit sector. We all have our own languages, and I say we because I've worked in all of them, but it's the same skills. And one of the things I like to say is if I ever become a consultant, I'd be in the perfect position to just hop around to every single conference there is, because everybody who's at a DAM conference or a data conference or a web content marketing conference, they're all talking about the same things: metadata, search, taxonomy, reporting, and yet they're not talking to each other. And I realize some of that's logistical, like we can't be everywhere at once in one gigantic conference, but I still think the industries themselves are pretty siloed. So one of the things I have on here is content management in the same circle as data management, because as Jana said, the content and the data have a relationship across systems. In the innermost circle, there's your people, process, information, and technology. And one of my pet peeves is a lot of folks talk about 3 out of 4 of them. They forget the information part, the information science, because it's just not as familiar to them. We talk about people, how are users going to adopt a system, change management. We talk about workflow for process, and certainly we talk about the DAM systems. And unfortunately, some people still think a DAM system is DAM, but thank you, David, for that definition. It's really a lot more than that. But the information architecture of your system is critical in your usability and your workflow and everything else. So I've listed those skills here that I mentioned that I wanted to put on the other slide. But again, just know that whatever you're studying today can be applied in numerous fields, not just DAM. I happened to pick DAM because it meshed with my creative backgrounds, and I loved working with creative files. So last slide, I have some some gems that I hope I can share for the purpose of having people learn from my experience and my missteps along the way. And I always thought too, I've been told this a couple times, if I ever need a backup career, it would actually be changing careers. Like write a book about changing careers, because I've had to do it. I've had to retool a couple of times. And pretty much it's been effective. I figured out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and I used my research skills to get there. And I think that's one of the big takeaways I'd love for everyone to have. So talking about research skills, I've already talked about leveraging your previous career. One of the things that employers look for is not just, can you do this job today, but what makes you unique over the 5 other people I'm seeing tomorrow? And having some subject matter expertise in their industry or with their products can make the difference in your learning curve, and hence how easy it will be perceived that you can actually get going and running. So definitely think about that. One of the secrets, I collect job descriptions, and I know I'm not the only person who does this. A, to see what's going on in the industry. B, to look at those keywords. What are people, what are the terms, like Jana said, that people are using? And for example, I can't remember who gave me this tip, but don't search for jobs by the title. Search for the skills, search for metadata, taxonomy, because titles change all the time. And if you know metadata, you can apply it almost anywhere. So that's one reason why I do that. Another is to snoop on people in LinkedIn and other social, professional social media sites. I have absolutely looked up employers that I wanted to work at. Philadelphia Art Museum, are you listening? And I've looked at people who've held roles in DAM or content management roles and said, hey, where did they come from? What, if I would like to get a job like that, then I should probably do what they do or know what they know. Hey, maybe I want to contact them and ask them what does your day look like, etc. So one of the things you can also see is where people went after they worked somewhere, which can tell you a lot about a company and how the company is changing, just based on who, is their team getting larger or smaller, etc., which can tell you what you're getting into as far as the value that a company places on DAM or information management. So last but not least, I'm sure you've heard it before, you're going to hear it again, the whole networking thing. One of the secrets that I have is create a service. Now, before I mention the DAM directory, I'd love for you all to check it out. When I created, it's basically a LibGuide for those of you who are familiar with the content management system that a lot of academic libraries use. It's basically a directory of different websites and resources related to digital asset management. And you didn't hear me say this, but the reason I created it initially was because I had so many resources that I accumulated going through the Rutgers program that I was like, where am I going to put these? So I got tired of social bookmarking. It just didn't work for me. I actually went to a vendor and said, hey, if I use this and promote this, can I use your product for free? And lo and behold, the answer was yes. So I got an account, and I decided to put all of my knowledge in there and therefore not have to carry it around in my head. And what happened was, as I grew the directory, I was like, well, why don't I just share this? I love to share with people. So literally, once I started doing that, I realized very quickly people started approaching me saying, hey, I'd like to be listed on your vendor page. And no, I haven't monetized it yet, but it gave me the opportunity to literally approach anyone that I wanted to, that was related to DAM or whatever, and introduce myself and the directory. And when people think they're going to get some value out of talking with you, they're going to answer you. And I don't think there's anyone who I've contacted that hasn't been helpful and friendly to me. So whether it's writing or creating some sort of service like that, give yourself an excuse to reach out to people, because you don't have to know people intimately in order to benefit from having that relationship and learning from them. And I think that's the most important part. So I hope those were helpful tips for everybody. And I won't keep you too much longer. I could talk forever about DAM. But I think all of us have had very interesting career paths. You know, we have consulting, we have practitioners, and for myself, kind of a chameleon going, you know, around and around, and who knows where I'll end up. But I look forward to any questions that everyone has.
Great. Thank you so much, Deb. I just want to give you guys a heads up that we are actually putting together a digital asset management certificate program. The information about that is on this slide. I'm not going to read it. I'll leave it up for you. And if anyone has any questions about it, you can contact Regina or myself. At this time, I want to open this up to questions. Sharon, would you like to start reading some of these?
Absolutely. We have several really good questions, and a few of them have been upvoted, so I'm going to start with the one that has the most upvotes. And this is from Millicent Ryan, and she asks, I'm going to graduate and have been looking at the job postings. And what she's been seeing is that employers want multiple years of experience with DAM software. And in her question, the software is what is emphasized. So many of these software packages are very expensive. So it's not possible for students, especially those students who are on a limited budget, to get copies of this software and learn it before going on an interview. So what she's wanting to know is, how important is that lack of software experience, but having knowledge of things like metadata and organizational standards when trying to get into the field of DAM?
So hi, it's David. I'll take a swing at that. Thank you for your thoughtful question. I would say that I would ignore the several years of DAM experience part of this and just submit a resume or CV or whatever the modality is that you're using to apply. I would encourage you to take advantage of vendor-provided information, which sounds like you've already done, from companies like Wyden Enterprises and others who have terrific, and Binder have terrific orientation materials. This is enterprise software, and no one at any serious level is going to expect you to have acquired the software to use. This isn't desktop, kind of amateur software that these jobs are posted for. And while several years of DAM experience might be sought, your degree carries a lot of weight. And I would go ahead and start tossing the proverbial CV in the ring from the get-go, and also, work with the network that's on this call and others on intern and other side door opportunities. I love what Deb was saying, that this is a highly ambiguated career path. It's not A plus B equals C. It's like A plus B equals base 8 arithmetic. So I think that using a network, using other ways in is also an important approach.
This is Jana. I think another, Deb nailed it from my perspective with regards to using LinkedIn as a terminology source for your resume and for your LinkedIn profile, which is something that I did when I was looking for work 3 years ago and ended up at HBO. And what I think you can also figure out is that there are things probably you've already done in your, career or in your school life where in effect you've been managing a DAM. So I think that because it could be something as simple as a list of contacts or your own photos, that you've created an index of photos that you've taken on your phone or on your digital camera, or a family archival project. So, don't be constrained by what you think that they're asking. Look at what you've done already and how you can rephrase, and you may end up with a portfolio piece you didn't even realize you had.
I can jump in too. This was a great question. I've actually been in a position, even after having a few years of experience with various DAM systems, some enterprise, some mid-range systems, where one of my dream jobs, this still kills me today, the HR professional was, filtering out who was qualified, who was not. She did not understand about DAM, but, she had her checklist. And, sorry?
It's so true what you're saying.
Yeah. So she asked if I had experience with their particular specific DAM system. And I said, no, but, the underlying principles of managing content in this kind of system, blah, 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 blah. Did not get the job. Who knows if that's why, but I think that is a good way to answer it. And I can send out some systems that you can actually try out for free as a demo. If you have access to Lightroom, I would say absolutely. Lightroom, Adobe Experience Manager is the enterprise version of Adobe's DAM platform. However, Lightroom is used for photographers, like individual professional photographers. Lightroom has features that AEM doesn't even have. So I can definitely help you with that. Feel free, I guess I can give a list to Sharon, and then we can share that out. If there's a will, there's a way, is my advice.
Okay, another really popular question has been, which courses at Rutgers would best prepare students who want to work with DAM? And Deb, you mentioned some of the skills and some of the courses that really resonated with you and have been instrumental in your work. Are there other ones that the students should focus on when sort of building their academic trajectory and trying to sort of aim towards a DAM career?
I would say one of the, besides the ones I've listed on the slides, one of the skills and programs or courses that I wish I had taken or known that I needed was project management, actually. Because you can have all these skills, but if you can't manage a DAM project, then it doesn't matter. Your DAM's not going to get off the ground. And those are huge projects, implementing a system. So again, if you have experience implementing any kind of database or content management system, then you're halfway there. But I would say beyond those basics, you definitely want to get experience working with users and how they use those kind of systems, not just the back-end information architecture.
And we do have, this is Lilia, we do have the project management course, of course, and we have the metadata class, and I'm sure there's other, Jona or David, do either one of you have any suggestions?
I think there was some kind of, wasn't there it's been a couple years, but wasn't there was like an information management or some of the courses under the digital librarian? Because if you think about even what, librarians do in many places where they're organizing information in a library to share with their patrons, that's really, it's its own DAM.
Yes. Yes, and I think you're referring to the information organization course, which is one of our foundational classes. I would also think database design and management would be a relatively relevant course to
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So,
not that you're going to design a database, but to understand the relationships between the entities, and attributes and relationships is foundational for working with metadata and working with assets.
And if you keep in mind that there's going to be probably at least certainly in the business world, again, profit, nonprofit does not matter. There's going to be more than one database. So how do you make sure that your terminology is consistent from database A to database B to database F? And then that makes you think about the metadata and how you're, and what you're going to use for your database fields in the first place.
Exactly.
Here's an interesting question. Are there information security jobs with DAM?
Sure. Yeah, you have to make sure that, well, I mean, there's security on the system side, you know, for logins and things like that. And then there's also whenever you set up any kind of a DAM system, or really, you know, any kind of content system, there's going to be permissions that are assigned at the user or group level. Is that what's meant?
Maybe the questioner could clarify a little bit, because I don't quite get how to answer that.
Sophia, could you add a little bit more information about your question to the Q&A section? And while Sophia is doing that, let me move on to another question. Joan asks, how do you integrate with legacy systems or legacy methodologies when you're working with archives and different finding aids?
So do you want to go, David?
No, go ahead. I'll follow up.
I just want to say that, once again, from my perspective, the integration gets back to cross mapping. What information, you know, what's the metadata that needs to go between those systems, and as the cross mapping happens, again, what's in system A and what's in system B, what's the workflow for that information, for that metadata, it ends up almost, it's a pattern that pops out. It's like a puzzle, and then you figure out what are people really looking for, what are the popular fields that were populated in the first place, and sometimes it kind of shakes out on its own. David, I'm sure you have a more detailed answer than I'm providing.
Well, I think the key to all of this is or are. The keys include such things as, are there universal unique identifiers on the legacy system? How open is the technology in what can be very arcane traditional library software to join with rich media management and DAM software? Modern DAM systems have a lot of availability and openness to integration. Sometimes traditional box and shelf reference systems have a very difficult time even getting a URL as a metadata placeholder to point to the rich media object. So there can be issues in this, and making sure that the correct joins are made through good metadata mapping. But it is, sometimes what often happens is the DAM system just takes over the traditional finding aids, and they are absorbed as metadata, and the prior system just disappears. So there's a lot of approaches to this. It will depend a little bit on how contemporary each technology is and how much money is available to invest in it.
This is Lilia. I don't know who's got their microphone on and typing. Could you turn your microphone off? It's a little unsettling. Back to Sharon, please.
So Marianne had a follow-up question related to the Search and Information Landscape course. She is wondering whether or not that would be a good course to take in terms of understanding the user. That understanding the user might be a good approach to take to sort of complement some of the other DAM skills. Is that something that the panelists would agree with? That a searching type of course might be good for the students to have as well?
There is a search course.
So I don't know the particular class. It's searching, searching an SEO kind of class.
You know what? This is my recollection, is that there's from my course, there was a lot of focus on searching through existing databases, particularly, I guess, like I can't even think of the names of the databases.
Yeah, in the olden days, it was like dialogue or something. That has changed. It's become a broader kind of vision of what search is. Anyway, this is Lilia.
But I think so Lilia, do the courses now also talk about how to promote then, how to make your terms bubble up so this way you would get better hits? Because that was always my question, because at that point, again, I was working in an information architecture group and I was the taxonomist, and I wanted to understand what I, as the content creator, needed to provide in order to make my content pop up better. And so I don't know where that fits in, but that's something that there's a difference between how do you search with the existing content that's already there, and here's the metadata fields that are available, and then your proximity searches and Boolean searches and all that are important. But there is that whole it's a whole background on how do you search engine optimization.
Yeah, that is a different perspective. And I don't think in our search course that is covered. But I do believe in some other courses it's covered, but it's also something that places like the business schools will teach in their, digital marketing classes. It could also be a professional development type of class you would take. This would not be a full course. It might be a section within a course, or it could be a little program in a professional development context.
Another interesting perspective on this is as all of us continually learn existing DAM systems and new systems coming to market, new releases of software coming to market, is to hold this question up in a slightly orthogonal mirror and ask the question, how well do the DAM systems that are being either utilized or investigated report on failed searches?
Right.
And the failure to monitor, the failure of DAM systems to yield understandable data about failed searches has a very strong traceability coalition to actually failed DAM projects. That's a fairly startling statement on the face of it. But research that we've done indicates time and time again that the inability of a DAM system to help us find what we're looking for leads, oddly enough, to user decay and user dissatisfaction. And once the grumbling starts with software when you're at work, oftentimes it's very hard to de-grumble. It's not a software cleanup tool. Then it becomes a change management issue. Failed searches are the Sutter's gold of a DAM system. And if we can see those shiny objects under the water or visible about where our where our DAM systems are not finding assets, we've really found good nuggets. So just a little kind of first cousin to that question.
On that note, I would have to say that note is a perfect way to end this webinar. I really want to thank our panelists and our crew, and for our audience for participating in our first ever webinar with its little quirks here and there and the typing in the background occasionally. It's all a learning experience, and I hope everyone learned from the experts on our panel today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great. And good luck to everybody, and take a lot of classes and read a lot, like in LinkedIn and Twitter, and follow different places where you can be gaining information in addition to your coursework.
David, would you like to say a few words?
I vote for Jana. And if there's students talk to us about coming to the Henry Stewart conference, talk to Lilia, talk to me, because that's something that is sometimes we can get that door open a little bit.
Yes, I've sent, that's true, the Henry Stewart conference coming up in May. I've sent out a couple of emails about it, about the leadership program. Some of you have contacted me, and if there's anyone out there who is interested in the DAM leadership program, please let me know.
Google Henry Stewart, New York, DAM, and then click on the future leaders.
Yeah, or they can just look at my email from like 2 days ago.
Or look
Either
at,
way works.
we'll
Different
be there.
approaches, same solution.
Thanks, everybody. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
With that, we will say goodbye. Thank you, Lilia, David, Jona, Sharon, and Deb. And with that, we are signing off. And thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.